Leader of the Opposition.
Thanks, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister. How can the Australian people trust the Prime Minister with the COVID recovery when he was complacent in the lead-up to the bushfires, despite the clear warnings from experts, and months after the bushfires, debris is still there, but more importantly, survivors are still living in caravans and showering in community halls?
The Prime Minister has the call.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I thank the member for his question. This government, Mr Speaker, this government put in place the National Bushfire Recovery Fund in January of this year, Mr Speaker. $2 billion was set aside to support the work of the National Bushfire Recovery Agency, Mr Speaker. That fund was intended to acquit some $500 million by the 30th of June of this year. We estimate that that figure will exceed over $1 billion by the 30th of June this year. Small business support grants of some $10,000 have now been provided to over 170,000 small businesses affected right across the bushfire-affected areas. In total, small business support has been over $200 million to support those small businesses so devastated. Mr Speaker, there has also been some 1.5 million approvals for small businesses on the greater up to $50 million, $50,000 I should say, Mr Speaker, for small businesses who are seeking their support. Primary producer grants, Mr Speaker, have been provided to the tune of some $127 million to primary producers who are affected by these arrangements. The work is being done to clean debris, and that estimated cost is to be over $500 million, Mr Speaker. Over $500 million, and as was reported earlier in this week, South Australia will have largely completed that task very, very shortly. New South Wales, who are managing that work, will have completed that task by the end of June, as I indicated to this House earlier this year. And in Victoria, Mr Speaker, we understand that that task will be completed by August of this year. Now, as the Leader of the Opposition knows, the matters of accommodation for those who are affected are matters that are handled by the states and territories, and we have not received, to the best of my knowledge and on my advice, that any request outstanding from the Commonwealth to provide support for accommodation in these communities. And I look to the Minister for Emergency Management, and he indicates that that is the case. Mr Speaker, we will deal with crises every time they impact on this country, and we'll do it methodically and steadily, and Australians are seeing that in action. If the Leader of the Opposition wants to politicise these things, that is a matter for him.
And I call the member for Reid.
Thank you, Mr Speaker.